Well, hello all, and welcome back to week number 2 of History and Theory of Public Administration. All right, just as a quick review, last week we talked about our founding documents. We got anchored a little bit to the Articles of Confederation, and that they were a weak kind of association between the states that needed a little more emphasis to them, a little more glue to tie us together. So that's when we came up with the Constitution and this tighter relationship between this overarching federal government and the state governments. Excuse me. The two groups that were always fighting, loosely speaking, were the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. So remember, there's a distinction between the Anti-Federalists and the Federalists, one wanting stronger state governments and one wanting a stronger federal government. And what that differs from this concept of federalism, which is the relationship between the federal government and the states. Now, let me go back. We usually say that the anti-feds want stronger state government and the federalists wanted stronger, more centralized government. But we have to keep that in context. By today's standards, the federalists wanting the stronger state governments or stronger federal governments was still so small compared to what we are today. I don't think our founders ever envisioned the size that our federal government has become. Because again, we were the United States, each state being sovereign and independent with this small overarching federal government. But we have become a country where we have this very, very powerful federal government. For good or for bad, it's up to your own philosophy. But I wanted to make a distinction that the Federalists of the 1700s were not strong federal government like we would know today. Moving on up in time, late 1800s, we had the Pendleton Act, and that's when we, public administrators, were created. And then a few years after that, Wilson wrote about the dichotomy, the politics-administration dichotomy, where the politicians on one side were responsible for the creation of laws, and the administration then, on the other side, responsible for the implementation of the laws. Moving then on to Taylor with scientific management. He's the middle picture there, Frederick Winslow Taylor. And now trying to figure out, not for public administration specifically, but for all managers, what is this role of the manager? So, and he was saying to scientifically figure out what had to be done, when, and by whom. Moving to then Max Weber from Germany, excuse me, and Weber being the one to start talking about how do we structure the organization. So Weber is about the structure of the organization, Taylor about what managers do, and Wilson about that dichotomy of the role between politics and administration. So remember, we need to know off the top of our heads that the Pendleton Act was passed in 1883, and that yes, and then Wilson's article was written in 1887, off the top of your head, you should know this, and it was called A Study of Administration. Taylor's article was written in what year? Yes, you said 1912. Very good. All right, 1912, Scientific Management. And so I want you to not only know what the theories are, but make sure that you're comfortable with the timing and the article title. Again, if I don't know, we've talked about it last week, start making some flashcards that you'll kind of keep through. This will help you for your comp exams at the end. And you could use Quizlet or other kinds of programs like that, either on your computer or on your smartphone. I don't know if I told you this last week. There's a program or an app called Quizlet. And I used to teach at Cal State Northridge, and the MPA students in preparation for their comp exam have built some Quizlet MPA things that would have like flashcards about Wilson, Taylor, Weber, stuff like that. So if you download the free app, which is Quizlet, and you search for CSUN, Cal State Northridge, CSUN MPA comp exam or something like that, that might give you a good start of some flashcards to start using as you go through this class, and that will prepare you for your other classes and for the comp exams at the end. All right, this week I kind of mentioned it last week, but I don't know the Good Now and the White article kind of get mixed up between weeks 1 and week 2. So if you read White last week, that's good. Then read Good Now this week. I know some of you emailed me and said you already included Good Now, which is perfect. But Good Now goes hand in hand with no. Okay, I'm now in the last one. Not Weber, not Taylor, but Wilson's article. So Wilson's talking about the dichotomy. Good Now, I want you to read the whole article, but really focus on the end of Good Now's article, where he begins disagreeing with Wilson on the true dichotomy or the absolute dichotomy. You're going to read Follett this week. We'll talk about her in just a moment. And you're going to preview the first 2 chapters of Waldo. And then there's a lecture on the progressive movement as well. All right, so Good Now is, so again, Wilson was 1887 and then 1900. We've got Good Now with his kind of politics and administration. And again, focus on really the end of his article. But you're going to see when you read Wilson, Good Now is a little easier to read than Wilson, but you'll see those two really go hand in hand. All right, now we get up to 1926. So now we have Wilson, Taylor, and Weber. Wilson talking about the dichotomy, Taylor being this very strong kind of autocratic manager. The manager is the one who decides what you do, when you do it, how long you do it. So this very top-down kind of approach. Weber, same thing, very hierarchical, the bureaucratic structure, all of that goes into Weber. Now, in 1926, Mary Parker Follett comes about, one of the only women theorists that we study, and especially 1926, we women in the United States had just gotten the right to vote a few years before that. A very powerful voice, never really got the credit in her day for the innovation that was Mary Parker Follett. So people are saying, how are we efficient? Well, time and motion studies, McDonald's, very efficient. How to get a burger out in, 20 seconds or less. That's all very Taylor-esque. Mary Parker Follett comes out and said, that's not the only way to get efficiency out of people. That's not the only way to get more productivity out of people. There's another aspect of managing and another aspect of work that has to do with the manager understanding the employees. And what she talked about was this power with rather than power over. So we as a employer-employee relationships, we can have power together rather than me being the boss and you doing what I say. And so this reciprocal relationship, which was kind of the heart of what she talked about, in that if I understand, if my employees are having trouble at home, if they're not feeling safe at home, then maybe I can help them with some resources. As the result, then I can get a better and more productive employee out of this. So there's a video here that talks about Mary Parker Follett. It's a fairly short video, but it's a very interesting concept, especially if you put it in context of that time, which is this Industrial Revolution. Again, time and motion studies were all the rage. And she's saying, no, there's a human factor involved in this. Mary Parker Follett was really the leader of this kind of concept of transformational leadership. She never called it that, but that was really what she was beginning. That let me find out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and let me help you. So if you think of more of a coach, if you're supposed to be coaching somebody to kick field goals, well, it doesn't help to yell at that person, although maybe some people do. But let me work with you. Let me do what's best for you, and in turn, you'll want to do good to please, kind of please your coach. And so it goes both ways. So this reciprocal relationship, or the phrase is power with rather than power over. So a very unique voice of the time, very unique kind of thought process, and really never caught on until much, much later. So give some, this is a video I'd really recommend that you watch. I think you'll enjoy it. And it's not a great video. It's kind of a poorly done video, but the information's pretty good. There are some PowerPoints listed this week. One is called Ethics in Management, just notes only, so just review that if you would. And then the evolution of PA. This is a good one to keep for your comp exams as well, kind of giving you an overview of the evolution of our industry. We have the administrative state. It's a guest lecture this week and another guest lecture on the progressive movement. When you're talking about the administrative state in that particular book, that one's going to prepare you better for the final paper. So as we're going through a lot of the day-to-day stuff that we're doing in the beginning of the class, these other things, although they're not coming up in our discussions, will be coming up at the end of the class. So keep an eye out for this as well. Okay, so this next week by Sunday, I want you to develop a 4 to 7 slide PowerPoint, no audio yet, and compare and contrast the early voices. So there's some detailed instructions on Blackboard. And again, I don't want too much writing on these. I want more graphics, but what are the concepts? The similarities and differences between all of our early theorists. So we're really going from Wilson, Taylor, Weber, Mary Parker, Follett, Goodnow, White, all of them. What are you kind of seeing in these early stages, putting it in context of the time? So again, if we take Taylor's revolutionary thoughts on scientific management, by today's standards, we do it all the time. It's no big deal, but it was revolutionary at the time. The same with Mary Parker Follett. So these are our early thinkers that really shaped the way not only public administration operates, but also how industry operates. All right, and then this week on Saturday, there's going to be an essay due. This is just 2 to 3 pages. I do want perfect APA format on these, which again is Times Roman 12-point, 1-inch margins, perfect title page, references, and in-text citations. And then last week I had posted the link on where to get some more information on that if you're still working to perfect that. What I want you to do on the essay is select one of the early voices in week 2 and compare and contrast with an author from week 1. So that's the beginning of the paper. The next section is how do our founding theories, so the Constitution, federalism, Pendleton Act, those kind of founding theories relate to these theorists. And again, it doesn't have to be all of them, but how are these? So we have these theorists that you're working on, compare and contrast, but then these founding concepts, how did they relate to how our theorists thought or how they built upon that? And do you see any Christian themes running through any of our topics right now? Why or why not? And you can take that last part of the paper any way you want. So do you see Christian themes either running through our early documents, maybe running through our theorists, the theories, anything like that? How do you kind of see that going? All right, and that's it. So we've got some more reading this week, a few videos to watch, and to, again, begin getting prepared for the final paper as well that we'll be doing in week 7 or 8. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know. And in the meantime, have a very blessed week.